Today's episode is brought to you by Patreon. If you're interested in supporting the show, go to patreon.com/JoshuaVelas and become a $2 backer today and get early access to the new episodes. I'll be leaving a link in the description down below, but for now, on to today's episode. You're listening to the Augmented Experience podcast. I'm your host, as usual, Joshua Velas. I'm a student, musician, and a gamer at heart. Join me as I sit down every week to talk about all the latest news in the technology, business, and video game world. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. My name is Joshua Velas. I am your host, as usual, and obviously, welcome back to the show. Today's episode 97 of the show. We're only 3 episodes away from the 100th episode special, which obviously we're getting everything ready for that. You know, it's going to be a really fun episode. Obviously, if you guys haven't heard, which I'm surprised you haven't at this point, definitely go check out the YouTube page. You know, let me know what you guys think of really the first video I've done, like in front of a camera and everything. And let me know what you guys think. You know, obviously that's the direction that the show is going in, that we're going to start becoming a video podcast as well and start incorporating video into these, you know, discussions. And it's going to be really fun, you know. So the first episode is obviously going to be the 100th episode special because that's why. And I'm also in the works of getting some other things done. So be on the lookout for that. But aside from that, we're going to do a little bit of house cleaning. Obviously, thank you guys so much for your continued support and coming back and listening to the show. Really means a lot to me that you guys keep doing that, to be honest. You know, especially in this time, it's hard, you know, that especially as a creator, it's not as easy, you know, because for most creators, like, they always either do this full time or they have like another job. And, you know, obviously this whole situation is like, yeah, it's not the best. And I just thank you guys that you guys constantly keep coming back and listening. You know, obviously thank you to my Patreon backers. You know, you guys are great. And, you know, for continued support. Obviously, if you guys are interested in supporting the show, you can always go to my Patreon page. You know, it's only $2 a month to become a backer. Obviously, you can do more, but that's up to you, you know. But $2 a month gets you early access to new episodes. And we're obviously working on new things to add to the Patreon page to give more incentive for backers, you know. But aside from that, we can obviously go into today's episode because a lot of people didn't vote on this, but I would say this was the most interesting story out of the 2 this week, you know, for many reasons. We talked about the iPhone 12 leaks on Wednesday's episode, so we covered that. However, we obviously, at the time of that recording, I was also watching the OnePlus 8 launch event. And to me, obviously, if I didn't give it away, we're talking about the OnePlus 8 lineup today. And while watching the event, yes, I did felt it went a little bit too long for just to get on with the point. You know, these are the new phones, these are the new features, this is the price. And I just felt like they dragged it on a bit too long. But, you know, an hour is an hour, so that's fair. But what I didn't like was the reactions going on afterwards. Because if you guys haven't been on Twitter, or if you're not part of the YouTube tech community, you definitely run into a very interesting situation here. Where, yes, the phones on paper are great. They have great specs. As usual, OnePlus always provides the best specs for a smartphone. And this year, there's obviously, besides, like, nothing new in the sense of, like, yeah, you're getting a lot of power, but we did get some necessary changes to the lineup at the expense of an extra cost. Now, well, what's interesting, in my opinion, is how the YouTube tech community claim to be tech enthusiasts, but do not understand how the market really works. And I know John Prosser has talked about this multiple times, and I know Juan has talked about this multiple times, that the YouTube tech community, or tech enthusiasts in general, are a very confused bunch. They are not the, how would you say, brightest tools in the shed, to say the least. Not being mean or anything, I'm not trying to offend anybody, but I'm being honest in the sense that they do not comprehend how the market works and what, you know, determines value. Because on paper, yes, OnePlus had to increase the prices this year. You know, I posted on my social media the prices. The OnePlus 8 is going to start at $799, and actually, my bad, no, $699 for the OnePlus 8. And the OnePlus 8 Pro is the one that actually starts at $899. And a lot of people were mad. A lot of people were pissed off that these phones started at a very high price. But something that a lot of people seem to forget. This is a weird year for the smartphone market. And before I continue, I just want to make this very clear. I do not want to talk about the specs of this phone. I can briefly go over them, but I do not want this discussion to be just regurgitating spec lists, because if you want to do that, just go watch another YouTube video on the internet where they regurgitate specs and not talk about the bigger picture here, because that's what I like to focus on, is the bigger picture. And the bigger picture in this scenario is we have a very confused market, and consumers being confusing. I've said this multiple times and I've gone on record saying this. Human nature is very interesting, to say the least. Humans are random. We are not linear. And I know it's weird. Like, trust me, like, think of it from my perspective. I am an engineering student. Engineers in general like to be linear. They like linear thinking. That's what engineering teaches you, is to be linear. How do you go from A to B, A to B, B to C, and then C to D? You get what I'm saying? And with people, you can't do that, because people can do things on a whim. People can be random. They can do things on just a random occasion. Like, they could be doing this 1 second and they immediately jump to something else. Like, you can't apply linear thinking to people and how they act, because it doesn't work. People are random. That's why we have free will. And then you throw in this situation where, for example, everybody knows OnePlus struggles in some areas. They always sell a good value phone at a good quality, but it always has compromises in some areas. Let's say, for example, like with the OnePlus 7 Pro, my phone, it didn't have wireless charging. It didn't have an IP rating. Its camera, while better, was still not as good. It was still a B+ player. And so they're like, okay, what can we change with the OnePlus 8 and 8 Pro? What did they change? So when we look at the spec list, because I know we have to, we obviously have top of the line specs. We have an 865 plus 5G, because, obviously all the 865 processors have to have the 5G modem. It's just how Qualcomm is selling them, and that actually is a very important thing to keep in mind. Keep that in mind. 8 to 12 gigabytes of RAM, depending on your storage, up to 256 gigabytes of storage. Obviously very fast storage, clearly. Very fast RAM as well. We also have a 4300 milliamp hour battery in the OnePlus 8, and then the 8 Pro we have 4510 milliamps, so that's 4510. And then obviously we have an upgraded camera sensor on the Pro version. The Pro version is what got the better cameras this time around. It got a new Sony lens. It also got a wide angle lens at the same pixel count as the main focus lens. Obviously, in terms of the display, yes, they upgraded the display to become a very, very good panel. 120 hertz on the Pro, 120 hertz, and then 240, response time. Obviously, it's like touch sensitivity. And then we also got, obviously a new color gamut. It's very bright, HDR10, Dolby Atmos speakers, dual speakers on both of the phones. One thing to say about the OnePlus 8 is it's 1080p, but it's a high 1080p with 90 hertz. So obviously really good panel as well. Both of them have a lot of brightness on them, which is excellent. And aside from that, in the spec list, people are like, okay, we got a lot of good specs, but the phone is still too expensive. And I'm like, well, what did you expect? I know me and Juan have been on Twitter just responding to people, because it's interesting to me to see people complain about the OnePlus in general increasing their prices. But I'm like, what did you expect? They gave you what you wanted, right? You asked for these things, they gave it to you, and now you're complaining. And it's like, people are like, oh, but we had to get it at a cheaper price because we're special. And I'm like, no, that's not how the market works. You pay for more premium parts, you pay a premium price. That's how this works. And some people are saying, oh, it's no longer a value option anymore. It no longer is a value option. It doesn't undercut Samsung and Apple. And I'm like, well, yes, it does. If you think about it, the OnePlus 8 Pro maxed out model, 12 gigs of RAM, 256 gigabytes of storage, IP68, wireless charging, good cameras, amazing display, 120 hertz, 4,500 milliamp hour battery, all under $1,000. What can you get for $1,000 from Samsung? You can get the base S20. Yeah. It undercuts the value of Samsung still. It's still 2/3 of the price. It still is. And some people get offended by that. And I'm like, well, you shouldn't be, because that's logic. It's still undercutting the phone. And people were saying, well, it's still too expensive. It shouldn't be $1,000. And I'm like, okay. Well, then what did you want? Because you cried and you cried and you cried and you complained to OnePlus to add these features, and they didn't add it because they knew it raises the price. And then when they decided to go all out and they gave you what you want, and still at an affordable price, the fact that a maxed out OnePlus 8 Pro is $1,000, that is good. That's a good, like, you get what I mean? Like, $1,000 should not be the base model of your phone. I would say the only way you can justify $1,000 if it's the maxed out spec version of a phone. That's when you can justify it. Not the base model starting off. Like, you get what I mean? Like, base storage, like, it should not be the base model. $1,000 should not be reserved for the base model. The fact that OnePlus is able to get a 5G high performance phone with good amounts of RAM, good storage, and all the features you want, wireless charging, reverse wireless charging, IP68, good cameras, like, the fact that it gives you all of that for under $1,000 is insane. Like, that is incredible value, because a lot of people are saying, well, how can you justify that? There's no other phone that has that proposition, And I know Juan said that, where he's like, name me another like Android smartphone that you can get all these specs for less than $1,000. And I know some people point up the LG V60, but obviously it's a good trade-off, because the LG V60 doesn't have the high refresh rate, and there's some compromises in areas, and that's why I'm saying it's a good balancing act. But what's interesting to me is how tech enthusiasts are getting so riled up and so offended by OnePlus doing this, that you got what I mean, is it shows that they're fickle. It shows that you can never win, like this kind of just proves the points for the companies. Is like, look, we can never win with people, like, we can never win. Like, we give them what they want and they still complain. They still find something to complain, because there was somebody on Twitter that made a comment that was very interesting in my opinion, where it was like, look, let me get this straight. Y'all are complaining because y'all wanted Lexus horsepower in a Toyota body. Are y'all crazy? Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, people don't understand that that's not how the market works. You can't just make some high-end spec smartphone, like premium features, premium everything, and say that you want it for $500. That's ludicrous. Companies would lose money and they would go out of business. Some people are like, well, that's what they should. No, because they have to make money. They have to make money. That's not how the market works. Just because you want something for cheaper, like, you get what I'm saying, doesn't mean that it should be cheaper. Like, just because you can't afford something doesn't mean that thing should be cheaper. No, that means you should be looking at something else that's in your budget, Like, they have high-end for high-end users. They have mid-range for mid-range users. That's why the OnePlus 8 is there, and it starts at $699. Still, that competes with like the iPhone 11, which I'd say is a better I wouldn't say compromise, but more of a better competition. Like, yes, its cameras are not going to be as good as the iPhone 11, but it's going to have a great processor. It's going to have great RAM. It's going to have 5G capable. It has a big battery. It has good software. It has a great display. So, you get what I mean? It's a good battle is what's going on. That's what's happening. And the consumer base still complains. Like, and we're going to talk about this when we talk about the iPhone SE, because it just came out, and consumers are weird, like, and I know Tech Alter did this video a while back talking about this, where he did a video talking about enthusiast brands and how they will betray you, because enthusiast brands start off as making all these big promises, providing good value at a lower price than the competition. They build their brand over time, they get a reputation, And then they start to raise their prices, and then they start to realize they can turn a profit. That's not a bad thing. That's a business. That's normal. That's what you would want, is you want to have a business that makes a profit because it's successful. Then you can invest in other areas, and then you can increase the quality of your products, and then, et cetera, et cetera. It's part of the natural cycle. OnePlus started from nothing and then became a high brand. They became a popular brand. Now, I know some people say, yes, they will never be as big as Samsung and Apple. And that's fair game. They're not, you got what I mean? Is, yeah, that's okay. They're not trying to be the next Apple and Samsung. Yes, they're obviously making good products and they know people will buy their products. Like, think about it. People complained about the OnePlus 8 and it sold out. Like, day one, it sold out. And people complained, oh, it's too expensive. No, it's not. It's perfectly reasonably priced for what you get. And I know a lot of people are going to get mad at me for saying that, but it's like, no, for the value and what you get for the price, you get a good quality smartphone. You get good features. You get a lot of things that will come in handy. And yes, I know it's a hard pill to swallow, guys. I'm not saying it isn't. But what I'm saying is, as a tech community and quote unquote tech enthusiast, they're not really that bright when it comes to understanding how the market works, about the stuff that we like. And to be honest, if you're complaining about the price, maybe you shouldn't be shopping in this area. You get what I'm saying? Is just because you can't afford something doesn't mean that that thing isn't worth what it's worth, Like, am I saying that there aren't products that are overpriced? No, I know there's some things that are straight up overpriced, like prime example, like Apple making the wheels for the Mac Pro, like, start at like $700, $600. That's insane. That the fact that a couple wheels cost that much. And then you have crazier things like, the base model Mac Pro costing $6,000, or yeah, like around $5,000ish or $6,000. It's like, this is ridiculous, And then you just get some crazy overpriced things. But you also have to keep in mind is every Android manufacturer this year is in a tough spot. They had to increase prices because of what Qualcomm is doing. Qualcomm made the 865 a very expensive chip to buy because you have to include 5G. Like, every Android smartphone that comes out this year has to have 5G. You cannot have you cannot buy the chip by itself and not get the 5G modem. It has to have the 5G modem. You have to pay for it. And because of that, it costs more money. Because of that, everybody has to increase their prices because they have to spend more on a chip. Like, think of Samsung. Why do you think Samsung made the base S20 start at $1,000? Like, heck, LG managed to make good compromises and make a good phone, the V60, for less than $1,000. Heck, even the maxed out version caps at $1,000 because you get a lot of stuff with it. Like, I'm not surprised. OnePlus did the best that they could with their price range. They had to increase them because how are they going to turn a profit? And I know some people say, well, what about Microsoft in their situation, like with the Xbox Series X? And I'm like, well, that's a different thing. Like, and we'll talk about that eventually too. But that's a whole different ballgame because it's different circumstances. And you get what I'm saying, guys? Like, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to be that guy that's just like a jerk. Like, I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm not trying to make you feel bad. I'm not trying to belittle anybody or make anyone feel like dumb or feel like they don't know what they're talking about. But we need to be honest with ourselves and be objective here, because right now, you get what I mean, is we're sending a lot of these mixed messages and we're acting confused for no reason. It's like, it's a very linear progression in this case. It's like, look, this part is expensive. It costs more money to buy it, so we need to sell this thing for more money to make our money back. You get what I'm saying? Because, yes, that's business. That's normal business. Apple does this because, well, one, they have the name, they got the brand, like, and yes, their hardware is very superior to most of the competition. That's just being objective and honest. Like, yes, there's some areas that I do not agree with the iPhone, or I'd say iOS in general, that some areas I don't agree with it, but I do acknowledge in a hardware perspective, it is superior because when you can control the entire process from top to bottom, you make the silicone, you make everything inside of it, you can get a lot out of it, bro. Like, that's what a lot of people don't realize. And yes, it does suck that everybody had to raise their price, because like I said, this is going to be a very hard year for the smartphone market, because not only with the whole situation going on outside, you have Qualcomm being jerks with the 865 and forcing people to buy the 5G modem, which is now causing companies to raise their prices. Like, this is a weird time, you know? Like, it's not as easy as like, oh, they should just make it cheaper. No, they can't, because then they won't make a profit, and they need to make a profit. Like, that's how a business runs. You can't just sell things at a loss all the time. You get what I'm saying? You have to make a profit somehow. And that's just how it is, guys. Like, I know some people are going to call me like a OnePlus shill or trying to defend corporate or corporations. Like, he's just defending the corporations. Like, he just capitalism. Like, no, it's common sense, guys. Like, this is how the market really works. Like, value is a subjective thing. You have to think about it that way. It's very subjective. I can't tell you what value is, because what I consider valuable may not be valuable to you. You get what I'm saying? Like, I find this valuable, and you may say, I find my Nintendo Switch valuable. You may not find it valuable. I might find this, hat from my school, this Texas Tech hat that I have, valuable. You might not. You might think that's trash. You get what I mean? Like, value is very subjective. It depends on what you consider value. Like, think about it like this. Money only has value because somebody gave it value. Aside from that, it's a piece of paper. Like, money is a piece of paper. It's just a piece of paper somebody printed and somebody gave it value. That's the only thing. That's the only reason money has value, because somebody gave it value. You may not find it valuable. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I think with this whole situation with the tech community right now, it's very interesting, because you know what I'm saying is OnePlus gave the tech community what they wanted. They gave them wireless charging. They gave them IP ratings. They gave them reverse wireless charging. They gave them big display, 120 hertz, 1440p, big battery life, good cameras, like, they gave them everything, and then they still complain. Like, come on, guys, really? Like, are you surprised? Like, why they get mad at the community sometimes? Like, why companies get mad at the tech community? Because they always complain about the littlest of things. But I also say this: when you start playing at the $1,000 price range, you are official flagships. You are officially a flagship, and now you will be graded in the same aspect as a flagship. You will be graded hard. You will be reviewed intensely. You will not get a pass on some things, because when you play with flagship territory, you will be graded as a flagship. And yes, as much as I think the OnePlus 8 Pro is a great phone, there are some flaws with it. And obviously I won't be talking about that, because that's not my job. That's why we have reviewers that will talk about this in depth, that will break it down. Obviously I would point you in the direction of my friends, because I know they're great reviewers, and they will give you the straight truth, objective truth. They'll tell you how it is and not BS you. But in my opinion, like, I think OnePlus did the right call. I think they made the right call. Like, they gave people what they want, and they still kept it at under $1,000. Like, you get what I'm saying? A maxed out OnePlus 8 Pro is $1,000. It's not the base model. It's the maxed out spec version. 12 gigs of RAM, max storage, 256 gigabytes, wireless charging, reverse wireless charging, IP rating, like 120 hertz display at 1440p. You can actually do it. You can't do that on a Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra. You can't do it on that. You can't do it on the S20. You can't do it on the S20 Plus, but you can do it on the OnePlus 8. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just think the tech community is really dumb. I think they just want to find something to complain about. I know there's going to be people going to be mad at me because of this episode, because of that main reason, but I just had to get that off my chest, because I didn't want this episode to primarily focus on the specs, because if you want to do that, just go watch another video, guys. Like, don't listen to me. I'm just going to tell you how it is. I'm going to tell you the bigger picture that I view in this situation, and it just shows that the tech community is just fickle. The tech enthusiasts just want to complain just because they want to complain. Like, they will find anything to complain. And it takes us having these objective conversations with one another to realize, look, let's take a step back. Let's look at the bigger picture. That's the important thing here that a lot of us aren't doing, because we rather be emotional. We rather be, and I'm not saying you can't have emotions. I'm just saying, like, you want to get caught up in the emotion. You just want to get mad to get mad, you know, like no real reason to get mad. You just get mad just because why not? But I would say this, for the value, like based on the price, I say that the OnePlus 8 and 8 Pro are worth their price. They definitely provide a lot of value for their price range, and they provide very interesting competitions in their price range. Think about it. The S8 Pro can now compete with the Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus, or maybe the Ultra if you really want to. Is it going to beat it head on head? No, but if you're talking about a big price difference, like a maxed out version, you get what I'm saying? Like maxed out 8 Pro seems really good when you compare it to a base model S20 Ultra. Same thing with the base model of the 8. The base model 8 comes with 8 gigs of RAM, 120 gigabytes of storage. The iPhone 11 starts at 64 gigs. Doesn't have a good as display as the 8 Pro or as the 8. And we'll find out the battery life when people test out the 8, you know? But I'm really interested. I'm excited that OnePlus did this. I think it was a good step in the right direction for them. I'm congratulating them on finally making that jump to make a premium, to actually have the courage to make a premium high-end smartphone. Now, granted, yes, it will be reviewed as a high-end smartphone. There will be no BSing. There will be no, oh, just because it was this price, we can take, like, you know, we can let that slide. You get what I'm saying? Once you get to the flagship territory pricing, there is no letting anything slide. You get what I mean? And you will be graded harsh. You will be graded harshly. And that's just how it is, you know? But aside from that, I thank you guys so much for coming back and listening to today's episode. It really means a lot to me, you guys keep coming back and listening to these episodes, you know, because, you know, I like doing this. It's a good way to keep my spirits up. It's a good way to help me relax, you know, to share all these thoughts that are on my mind. It allows me to, you know, continue to pay attention with what, not only what's going on with the world, but also like the tech industry in terms of business, you know, actual new products, or even stuff in the video game world. And it's just really fun, you know. It puts a smile on my face, you know, because I get to talk to you guys. I get to share with you how I feel. And I just get to have a fun time, you know. And that's just how it is, you know, that I get to have such an amazing time, you know. Obviously in the house, things are going crazy, you know, because obviously I'm in my house, I'm recording. Obviously you guys can hear that in the background. I'll try to reduce that a bit, but it's definitely crazy, you know. But I thank you guys so much for everything. You guys are awesome. You guys are great. You know, you guys always put a smile on my face because you keep coming back, you keep listening. And you guys just keep being awesome, you know. Like, I know these times are hard. Again, I just want to take time to thank everybody that's considered an essential worker for continuing to work and continue to provide services for us, and, you know, to keep this ship running, you know, because times are tough right now. The world's not easy. Things aren't going the way they're supposed to, you know, but I know that we will get through this, that there is brighter days ahead, that we are not stuck here. You know, I always say that, you know, this is a season of our life for a reason. It's a season. Seasons don't last forever. They have an end. And I know that we will see brighter days, you know. I know that, you know, there will be better days to come, you know. I know that a lot of people have suffered so much in this situation. I know that there's people that have lost family members. I'm not going to pretend that, you know, it's just been sunshine and rainbows, like, oh, we're just locked in our houses. No, I know there's actually been some sacrifices, you know, and it's hard. And I just want to encourage you guys, like, look, I know it's super easy to say, look, we'll be fine, things will get better soon. I know it's easy to say that, but I do mean that from the bottom of my heart, that there will be better days. We are not condemned to this situation for the rest of our lives. This will have an end, and then I'm not saying everything will go back to the way they were, because as a wise man once said, you know, once you break a piece of glass, you can get all the pieces back together, but it still shows the cracks. It's not going to go back to the exact same way it was before, you know? But I'm just telling you guys, things will get better. We just have to constantly follow the laws, do what we have to do, you know, respect people around us, don't be dumb, you know? But just continue to be safe, continue to do what your local authorities ask you to do, and go from there, you know? But aside from that, thank you guys for your time, for coming back and listening. I hope I was able to bring a little bit of joy and positivity, even though this was a more negative, I wouldn't say negative episode, but just more of a being honest and more blunt episode, you know. But I hope that you guys were able to enjoy and understand the perspective that I'm coming from regarding this whole situation with the OnePlus 8 and OnePlus 8 Pro. I hope that you guys enjoy Wednesday's episode. You know, obviously you guys have both of those episodes to listen to, and you also have an entire other catalog to listen to if you have time, because, you know, we're all locked in our houses right now, so you have plenty of time to listen to some older content, you know. But I'm excited for the upcoming episodes because the 100th episode special is going to be really fun. You guys will get a video episode with it, and you'll get some other goodies with it. But until then, I thank you guys for everything. I love you guys to death. Please be safe. Continue to, you know, do what your local authorities ask you. Respect the people around you. You know, don't go coughing on people. And continue to be safe. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your family. Take care of your friends. You know, do what you got to do. And we'll get through this, you know. There will be brighter days. But until then, thank you guys so much for your time. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Please be safe. I love you guys to death. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye, guys. Hey there. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day and listening to today's episode. If you're interested in supporting the show, whether it be financially, clicking the follow button, or just sharing the episode, it all works for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for your time, and I love you guys to death.